Hidden since 1980, FBI uncovers the burial sites of 7 boys in 2026. In 1980, 7 boys vanished without a trace. No witnesses, no answers. For 46 years, their fate remained hidden. Until 2026. This is the story of 7 boys who disappeared without warning, a case that triggered frantic searches, countless questions, and an investigation that slowly collapsed under uncertainty. For decades, leads went cold, evidence faded, and the truth remained buried. But years later, new technology, forgotten clues, and a single breakthrough led the FBI back to where it all began. What they uncovered in 2026 would finally expose what happened and change everything. To understand what happened, we must go back to America in 1980. It was a time before smartphones, before the internet, and long before modern forensic science. Small towns were built on trust. Neighbors knew each other by name. Children played outside until sunset, often without supervision. When someone went missing, communities relied on word of mouth, local police, and hope. There were no DNA databases, no digital surveillance, no cell phone records to trace. Investigations depended on eyewitnesses, paper files, and limited technology. In cases involving missing children, answers were painfully hard to find. This story begins in a quiet town, much like many others across America, a place where nothing like this was ever supposed to happen. They were not just names in a case file. They were sons, friends, children with ordinary lives and simple routines. The boys ranged in age from early childhood to their early teens, each one different, each one remembered for who they were. Some were known for their curiosity, others for their kindness. One loved bicycles, another never missed a day of school. Every morning followed the same pattern: breakfast at home, a walk to school, playing outside before dinner. Nothing about that day felt unusual. The last sightings were brief: a wave goodbye, a walk down a familiar street, a moment no one thought would matter. By nightfall, they were gone. Playgrounds stood empty, classrooms felt quieter, and families waited for answers. That never came. It began like any other day. The weather was calm, clear skies, nothing unusual. The boys were seen that morning, moving through familiar streets, following routines they had followed countless times before. Witnesses later recalled small details: a group walking together, laughter, a turn down a road they knew well. By early afternoon, they were still around. By evening, they were not. As daylight faded, parents began to worry. Calls were made, doors were knocked on. Friends were asked the same question again and again. Have you seen them? As night fell, the silence grew louder. Flashlights cut through the darkness. Names were called into empty streets. Backyards were searched. Fields were crossed. But there were no answers. By morning, the realization set in: 7 boys were missing, and no one knew. Once the disappearance was confirmed, local authorities moved into action. Police began with door-to-door inquiries. Volunteers formed search parties. Fields, woods, and nearby roads were checked. For days, hope remained, but the investigation faced immediate challenges. Leads were scarce, witness accounts conflicted, timelines blurred, media coverage intensified, bringing attention and misinformation. Tips flooded in. Most led nowhere. Some suspects were questioned, others were briefly followed. None could be connected with evidence. With limited technology, every lead depended on memory, paper records, and chance. As weeks turned into months, momentum slowed. Search areas were revisited, then abandoned. Files grew thicker. But answers did not. Then, buried beneath layers of earth, the search revealed what had remained hidden for decades. The burial sites were discovered. There are no words to describe the relief, the grief, and the quiet understanding that followed. Law enforcement confirmed the findings. Families were notified. Years of unanswered questions finally had a solemn answer. The community, once haunted by silence, now faced the reality, and the long journey toward closure began. The discovery sent shockwaves through the community, and across the nation, headlines broke the decades-long silence, telling a story of loss, mystery, and finally, partial revelation. Some arrests were made, others remained elusive. Questions lingered. Was justice fully served? Did the truth come too late? And perhaps most haunting of all, who knew and stayed silent for all those years? The families, the investigators, and the community were left to grapple with answers that were long overdue and the voids that could never truly be filled. Even after the case was reopened and the truth emerged, the echoes of 1980 continued to shape lives, memories, and the questions that time could not erase. Some truths take decades to surface, but every effort matters, every lead counts, every voice can make a difference. This story reminds us of the importance of never giving up on cold cases and of the lives that deserve answers. If you know something, speak. Justice delayed is not justice denied. Let these lessons guide us as we honor those who were lost and strive to protect those who remain.